And welcome back to the Caribbean Times News. Just weeks after Guyana emerged from a long dispute over election results that deeply divided the country, the nation now finds itself facing the worst racial unrest since the 1960s. Following the gruesome murder of two Afro-Guyanese boys, Isaiah and Joel Henry, and the apparent retaliation killing of an Indo-Guyanese teen, Harish Singh, well, leaders representing Afro-Guyanese immediately labeled the killings a hate crime, and they called on supporters to protest. Well, people took to the streets in the northeast Berbice region where the murders took place. They were blocking roads, burning trucks, and attacking Indo-Guyanese residents and businesses. Earlier today, I spoke with Guyana's new president, Dr. Mohammed Irfaan Ali, about the unrest, and here is what he had to say.
Indeed, we are coming out of a little bit of a difficult patch with the horrific incident in which 3 young boys were murdered, and we are working very hard, assiduously, to bring those criminals to justice. As you're aware, we have reached out to our regional partners and international partners to ensure that we have all the resources necessary, human and technical resources necessary to bring those criminals to justice.
Yes. And now the former president and your political opponent, David Granger, he has backed the protesters. So I want to know, how do you see what is happening in the country, and what are your plans to address those racial tensions?
Well, you know, in any situation like that, there's what you call political action. And you can be politically mature or you can be politically immature. Now, it is up to all those who examine the action of the former president and leader of the opposition to decide which one they were. But when you exploit a tense situation for political gain, it does nothing for the country. It does nothing for the people of the country. It does nothing for society. But again, as I said, these are challenges and circumstances that we have to deal with in a political environment and in life itself. But we have moved forward in assuring the Guyanese people that justice must be served and that we are going after these criminals. We are ensuring that we have every single tool available, and those that we need help in, we have reached out for those help, as I said initially. But as we move forward, we have to ensure that our society and our policies and programs demonstrate the outlook of the government.
And now we have seen people on both sides call for Britain and other CARICOM nations to help investigate these killings and to make sure that the investigation is impartial. I know you have called for that as well. Are you able to give us an update on that?
Yeah, well, as you're aware, we very early on, we asked that the RSS, the Regional Security System, be activated, and also the British government. We sought out help from both areas. I'm happy to report to you that we are making great progress. From CARICOM itself, we are hoping that we can have a team very shortly. We have finalized the terms of reference. We had to sign an MOU. We had that done. And also on the British side, we have gotten a very positive response.
And we will have much more of my interview with President Ali coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Caribbean Times News. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made a historic visit to Guyana, becoming the highest-ranking sitting U.S. official to visit the country in more than 50 years. I spoke to the president about the visit, and here's what he had to say.
Well, what we were able to achieve many things. First of all, we signed a few agreements, as you're aware, that gives an opportunity to mobilize U.S. capital, the U.S. private sector can play a more active role, technology transfer, building of technical capacity, matching our local private sector with the U.S. private sector, so you can have greater collaboration and more integration, which is good for local content, which is very good for local content. We also have, we were also able to sign agreement that would help us from the security standpoint in the ship riders agreement. As you know, this is very important for us. We were able to have discussions surrounding radar coverage of our EEZ, looking at the catfish market, which is important, the catfish market that we had barriers to trade on. So those are things that we were able, excuse me, those are things we were able to look at in terms of the, just 1 second for me, please, class. In terms of, from a trade perspective, in helping our export, the catfish market is a very important market for us, and we were able to look at the catfish market with him also. So I think the trip also gave us visibility. And sometimes we underestimate the issue of visibility. Visibility allows us to showcase Guyana at the international level, and it brings that that interest, that gives us that edge in reaching to in areas and to investors that maybe were not paying attention. So these are things that the softer side, these are some of the softer side of visit and what it helps you to achieve. But more importantly, I think the visit sends a very strong signal about our commitment to democracy, our commitment to having strong bilateral partners. And of course, you know, the U.S. is one of the important strategic partner of Guyana. And it also sends a strong signal that we are ready to collaborate and cooperate on issues of national, regional, and international interest.
Now, the opposition party did release a statement questioning the timing of the visit and what they called, quote, the ratcheting up of rhetoric against Venezuelan leaders. So, Mr. President, what do you have to say in response to those concerns that Guyana is taking sides in the Venezuela dispute with the U.S. and what that would mean from a security standpoint for Guyana going forward?
Well, I think the visit may have disappointed them in this regard, because we had the Venezuela issue is an issue we had already spoken about. We support democracy, we support freedom, and we support democratic transition. We associated ourselves with the Lima Statement and the OAS Statement, and we had nothing else to add. This visit had nothing to do with what is taking place in Venezuela. Had nothing to do with that. And I think at the press conference that we had, the joint press conference, this was made very clear.
And now, speaking of injustice, I mean, following the recent killing of Afro-Guyanese youth in Guyana and African Americans in the United States, we've seen both nations have seen protests for justice and heightened racial tensions. I wonder, is that something that you talked with Secretary Pompeo about?
Well, we spoke about general challenges in Guyana. I mentioned, and of course, this was a recent issue in Guyana with the killing of two Afro-Guyanese youths and one Indo-Guyanese youth. Three young people were killed in that area. And the need for us to ensure that our social systems, our social institutions, our policies and programs from a Guyana perspective reflect the national need of our people, and it's cross-cutting in nature. So we recognize here in Guyana that we have to continue to build a society in which there must be equality of access, in which democracy must be protected, in which people must be involved in the development process. But what we have to address also is false narrative and propaganda.
And we will have much more from that exclusive interview with the president tomorrow. And you can also see the full interview with President Ali on our website, CaribbeanTimesNews.com.